Welcome to episode 1 of So What's New in the Biscuit Tin. I'm Jess.
I'm Sam.
And we are just two sewists chatting about life.
Okay, well, I suppose, Jess, as it's episode 1, I ought to explain to you why this is called Sewing in the Biscuit Tin. The idea came from a discussion I had many years ago with someone about how everyone is a different type of biscuit. And so whether we work somewhere or like the sewing community, we're all sort of in that tin together. And when we met to talk about this idea, we kind of liked that analogy.
What biscuit would you say you are, Sam?
I was just going to ask you that. I have to say I'm probably a chocolate chip cookie. There's rocky bits, there's sweet bits. Some people love them, some people can't have them because they're allergic to nuts. What about you, Jess?
I would say I am a Cornish fairing, which I'm actually eating right now and baked in honour of this episode. They are sort of fun and gingery and spicy and very autumnal, which I count myself as well, and I have returned to the ginger hair colour in honour of the season as well. So I'd say I'm a Cornish fairing, but that isn't to say I'm not.
Get some of those.
Yes, I will bring some to when we record in person. I will bring you some.
That sounds good to me. Well, there we go. I can't wait for when we have future episodes to find out if we've changed our mind about what kind of biscuit we are, or if we've asked other people in our lives as well.
Absolutely. And I think if we record in person, we should bring whatever biscuits we feel we are that day. I feel like that would be a good vibe.
I think that's a good idea. I definitely would say there's some days where I feel more like a different kind of biscuit for sure.
Oh, definitely. And sometimes I just feel like a giant cup of tea. So this podcast, we're so excited to do this together. It's going to be great. But as this is our little intro, we wanted to tell you a little bit about how it's going to go. So we've said it a little bit already. This is two sewists chatting about life. We are going to talk about sewing. We're going to talk about sewing fails, your dilemmas, your successes, what we're sewing. But each week we're going to pick a theme so that we don't just talk forever. And we're going to have a chat about it. Some weeks we will be joined by other sewists who will be sharing their opinions and expertise. But it'll really just be a cozy chat. So grab a cup of tea and join us, particularly if there's a topic you would like us to cover. Please get in touch, let us know, because we want to talk about what you want us to talk about.
Well, I can't wait to get started. I can't believe how many topics we've already come up with for our episodes. Can you?
No, me neither. And I can't wait to cover them. I have to say as well, I'm really excited. We've been asking you guys for some of your sewing fails and sewing dilemmas, which we are going to go through every episode. And I have to say, it's my favorite bit because it's that opportunity for you guys anonymously to go, do you know what? I messed up, or please help me. And the thing is, that's what we're here to do. We're here to chat, and we want to normalize sewing fails. We all have them. We want to talk about your sewing dilemmas because chances are you're not alone. So I'm so excited for that kind of community aspect of this as well. It's going to be so fun.
Me too. And I hope people dish the dirt.
Oh, yes, always. But anonymously, of course. So,
of course,
enjoy.
Yes. No names will be revealed.
Never. One thing we were going to do this episode, as well as it's an intro, is to introduce ourselves a little. So, Sam, do you want to tell us sort of what brought you here? Sam is on Instagram and YouTube as Sequin Girly. So if you don't follow her, please do.
Well, thank you, Jess. I've been on a pretty interesting creative journey, hence why I am Sequin Girly Creates on YouTube, because I started life doing fine art and particularly oil painting, and have an art degree. Quite quickly diversified into textile art when I lived down in Devon, and using felt making and drawing with a sewing machine was the first things I ever did with a sewing machine rather than traditional sewing, and fusing like
so cool
bags. Yeah, and I was like fusing carrier bags and stitching them and all sorts of things. And I always sort of dabbled in making things, cushions, bags or whatever. I used my textile art to make bags at one point, and always sort of made the odd bit of clothing. I've had many a different style of clothing through my time, including a period when I was a goth, period when I dressed myself in the 1950s. So I think, expression has always been a critical part of who I am. And that's what sort of led me to this point where I sew so regularly now, is actually wanting to create a wardrobe of clothes that I actually want to wear, that feel like they're me, rather than what other people in the shops tell me I should be wearing.
Which
How
I
about
think
you,
is
Jen?
fantastic. I'm just going to pick up on that a second before I
Yeah,
introduce myself properly. But no, I completely agree. I think that's one of the joys of sewing, and it's definitely something I appreciate, is be able to separate yourself from what's in fashion or on trend, and just be able to go, do you know what, I like this and I'm going to wear it.
yeah, I think I've never bought what's on trend for sure. But even
I love
then, like,
that.
yeah, but even then, you can't always find what you want in the shops. That's what I've always found the difficulty. Is even if I'm happy to sort of go with sort of what I want rather than what's on trend this season, still sometimes you're limited by what's in the shops. And I love colour, so it's always been a bit of a challenge finding what I wanted.
No,
So.
absolutely. And I think that's a huge thing for me. So anyone who doesn't know me already, if you've come to us from somewhere new, I'm Jess from Sew What If I Sew. You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, and I have a blog as well. I came to sewing, well, it's been a journey of stages. I started sewing when I was a teenager, when I was about 17. I grew up in a very heavily sewing, crafting, creative family. My mum was a costume designer and a stage designer, and my grandma used to sew and still does sew and knit and everything. And it's sort of, I didn't realize it until I got to the age I am now, but subconsciously growing up with this background knowledge of, do you know what, you can sort of make anything, was huge. And so it went, when I got to the age of 17, I'm a short lady and I'm quite curvy. And I found that at the time there was nothing in fashion that I could wear. No jeans were the right length for my legs, nothing fit my hips and my thighs and my knees. Nothing could fit my bust and my waist. And it was getting to be really quite upsetting, because it made me feel really kind of othered. It made me feel like these clothes aren't for you. Until my mum was like, well, why don't you try making some clothes? And I sort of went, oh, okay. So mum taught me to sew in a straight line, and then really I went off from there. I had a little break while I was at uni, because no one wants a flatmate who has a sewing machine. But then our partner at the time, he was like, well, who is now my fiance, but he said to me, like, you know, you're getting really stressed with work, why don't you get your parents to send down your sewing machine? Which I can't believe I hadn't thought of as like a stress relief thing. I don't know why. And then yeah, they sent it down, and I started sewing pretty much every day, just because it was something that allowed me to like immerse myself in another activity, to not think about work, and to like create. And I found that actually I love being able to make clothes that fit me. As you were saying, Sam, they're clothes I can't find in the shops, or I've always wanted, and they never fit right. I love being able to, like, create my own fit. I also really want to move away from fast fashion. Like, I buy the odd thing now and then, but nowhere near the amount I used to buy, because I just feel like the more I learn about making clothes, the more horrifying it is that you can buy a t-shirt for £2. And that's a big part of why I sew, is creating my own ethical wardrobe as far as possible.
Don't even get me started on that, otherwise we'll be on a whole episode already.
Exactly.
That's a huge one for me. But quite interesting listening to you talking about how you grew up. I grew up in a family of people who sort of just got on and made or created things, and I wouldn't say my family would deem themselves as like creatives, but my dad painted. He would make things out of woodwork. He would construct us random climbing frames out of like pipes in the garden.
Wow.
My mum would always like help me take up, like you should help me take up a dress, because I'm 5'2" and I stopped growing when I was 13. So I've been short.
Oh yeah, we should say this is a short girls podcast. We are both 5'2", so
yeah,
short dilemmas.
Yes, we'll definitely bring in a contrasting perspective at some point for the tall girl dilemmas. Yeah. But yeah, I remember it just being a very matter of fact thing. My mum going, "Oh, just loop up the loops here and just stitch those down, you know, to just adjust like the clothes that we had." And we used to grow vegetables, and you know, no one thought anything of it, like sitting in the garden in the summer shelling peas. It was let's not make out it was some sort of idyllic sort of house on the prairie type thing. But it was I grew up, you know, with parents who became parents in the late 70s, and it was very popular then. If anyone remembers the TV show The Good Life,
I love The Good Life.
Yeah,
I
you
love
know,
it
my mum and
so
dad were a
much.
toned down version of that, you know.
Which is amazing. But then it is interesting because, like, so my mum was a costume and set designer. My dad was a prop maker and a master carpenter. I'm the only
Yeah,
person in my family who's done an academic degree. Like, I have a
yeah,
sister who did drama, and my eldest sister did art and animation and stuff. And like, it was one of those things where, like, we're all very musical, we're all very creative. There was always an assumption that, like, oh yeah, you could just, like, my parents are the kind of people, particularly because they're both ex-theatre, if you take them somewhere, they spend 30 seconds going, oh, that looks nice, and 25 minutes going, how do you think they made that? And it's fantastic. And, like, it's great, but infuriating as well, because you're like, I just want to go buy a thing. But as an adult, it's great.
That's exactly what it was like for me as well. You know, it was never just buy a thing. My dad would look at it, my mum would look at it, you know, and we'd go home, and then, you know, 2 weeks later my dad would appear with a contraption.
I love
It's
that.
interesting, yeah.
It is fascinating. But I actually didn't realize. Thing is, folks, we should say we have, like, been friends before, you know, we've chatted a lot, but I'm really excited to get to know Sam more through the podcast, because you do just talk about things you don't normally talk about when you have a topic or
Yeah.
a theme. So I'm very, very excited.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting that we're from a different generation as well. Yeah.
So I'm in my mid-20s. Sam and I actually live very close to each other, but neither of us are actually from around here, which is also quite fun. Exactly. But it is, I think we are, I'm not going to estimate actually, because I'll be honest, because I am polite, I've never actually asked how old you are. I don't think, the only time I ask people how old they are is at work if I'm IDing them. Otherwise, it's not my business. But I know that we are a bit apart.
Yeah, I'll tell you how old I am, because I'm not ashamed of it. I'm nearly 47. No.
No, you're not. You don't look it.
I am.
That's ludicrous.
Yeah.
Well, I want to age like you, thank you. I'm
47.
going to ask you to tell me your birthday on a podcast that's going to go out, but are you a January baby? Okay.
I am, yeah.
Because I was about to say we have roughly the same birthday, and that would be insane. So I am 26 and I will be 27 in a couple of months.
Oh, well, there you go. See, strangely more similarities already.
See this when I come to your socials. Oh yeah, Sam also is the originator of the Southern Social, which we love. But I love coming to the socials and meeting sewists of all different ages. It's also the great thing about Instagram, because everyone's brought to sewing a different way.
Yeah, for sure. It's quite interesting how many people who've come to sewing did not have good experiences of sewing at school. That's been a topic of conversation at several socials actually, and people talking about how scarred they were by their sewing teacher. No.
Which is mad, because actually, so I'm very much of the generation where they kind of stopped teaching us textiles. Like, not many schools do it anymore in that way. I remember being taught to, like, cross stitch in primary school, and that's kind of it.
Oh yeah, so a bit of binca. Love a bit of binca. Yeah.
Oh,
it's still used in primary schools. I you know, as my background as a teacher, yes, it still comes out with the needles.
Oh my goodness, I absolutely love that.
Threading them for the children, but if you're really lucky, there's like these horrific plastic needles now, which wouldn't even spear a tomato, you know.
Oh really?
Yes.
Oh my god.
When you're using the binca, the holes are so big you don't need anything to pierce through. So yeah,
I suppose,
and they have
you
lovely
don't.
eyes for threading as well. So.
I would love actually to hear when we do go live, I'd love to hear from people about how they started sewing, because I do wonder generationally how people learn.
Yeah.
Because there will be people who learned at school and then came back to it 20 years later when the trauma had worn off.
Yeah.
But then there are also people who start at uni, or, like, I was in the local fabric shop near me and I met a load of the fashion students from Bucks New Uni, and they were, oh my, bless them, they were so cute. And they were running around with fabric, and I was like, they're so excited. And they were like, yeah, we just don't really want to do our coursework. We just want to make stuff for us. And it was just, I don't know, the way of looking at fabrics and constructions. Like, there's definitely a school of thought that's like, to learn to sew, you have to start with a shirt and then you do this. And it's like, actually, no, you don't. You can start with what you want to start with.
Yeah, for definite. And I think, yeah, it's quite interesting, isn't it? because I know, as you say, it's kind of done like a dip in the toe at schools now. It's part of design technology. So
Yes.
at some point, everyone in the UK curriculum will get a small element, but you definitely won't learn enough that you could construct something. So, and I know historically people were often taught by someone in their family, but I'm not sure. I wonder if that's still true. I'd be really interested in how people are learning now, because I don't know if it's a skill that's passed down in the same way it used to be.
Well, yeah, because I don't know. My mum taught me to sew in a straight line, and she did that by getting me a piece of paper and drawing a line on it and a sewing machine with no thread through it, and basically wouldn't let me put any thread in the sewing machine until I could keep it in a perfectly straight line. It's honestly, she did some curves for me and everything, but it was invaluable. It was brilliant, because the thing is, I don't really need like I can figure out the rest of it. I don't know, that's just me. Like, I'm very, very comfortable. I don't read instructions because I'm lazy. So I think by virtue of that, I sort of unlearned to look at pattern pieces and go, that'll be fine. But I'm so grateful to her for teaching me in that way, because I feel like I have control.
I think it's really interesting because I must have been taught a little bit by my mum. I don't have a huge memory of what I was taught. But I think I am, like yourself, mostly self-taught. And it's quite interesting. I wonder how much that affects like the way you approach your sewing compared to someone who was taught like a more classic route that knows all the different things. I think we could probably do a really interesting episode about that and reach out to everyone. We'd love to hear actually how people learn to sew and if it's generational, and whether we're that sort of middle generations where we just have got a bit rogue.
Well, exactly. And actually, let's put a poll in the group, and then you guys who've listened can let us know how you learnt to sew, when you started, so we can get some chat going as well, because
that would be great. I think that'd be really interesting.
But after all, it always, to sort of sum that up, it always makes me think of what my maths teacher growing up said. He had a colleague who was teaching primary school kids algebra, and he goes to him, "How are you doing that? It's so difficult." And he's like, "I just never told them it was difficult." And that's what I think of sewing. If you don't know it's hard, you just go, "Yeah, right, I'll do it. It'll be fine."
Yeah, exactly.
And you do so much more.
Yeah, I do think there might be this whole sort of almost like a barrier. I think we are definitely giving a flavour here of what's coming in some of our episodes.
Yes,
aren't
we are. So this is going to be great.
I think probably on that note, we've given quite a good flavour of how sort of our episodes will go, and we're looking forward, as you said, to having some guests on who will sort of add to that sort of it is a bit of sewing rambling chat, really, isn't it, where we never quite know where we're going to end up. We might start with the title but we're hoping that
it might end with a different title.
But that's how real conversations with friends happen, and that's what we want everyone to feel, is you are our sewing friends, and you can kind of come with us on that sort of that chat and leave us the comments and sort of follow us along as we sort of go off on our sort of rambling chat and just see what happens, really.
Absolutely. And I think it's hugely important to us as well that like we just want this to be a sort of fun community space. Both of us sew for the joy of it, really. We're both on YouTube because we love chatting to you guys, but this is the kind of thing we want you to be able to stick on while you're unpicking something for the 20th time. You're really frustrated and you just want your sewing pals. That's what we want to be. We want to be here for the sewing fails and the dilemmas and the fun. And like, also, if you share a sewing fail with us and then have a massive success afterwards, please follow it up and let us know. We want to be celebrating you guys as well, particularly if you've sent in oh my god, I've completely done this wrong, and then the week after you've gone, success, I fixed it. We want to know so we can share and shout about it, because that's really cool.
That would be great.
As Sam has said, we have definitely given you a flavour of where we're going to go. These episodes will come out every 2 weeks. Sam, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's what we agreed.
That's right, every 2 weeks. That's one of those things where, as it came out of my mouth, I was like, is that right? Yes, every 2 weeks. We will join you, and we will put posts on the podcast groups and things in the meantime so you guys can engage with us. But remember, if you enjoyed listening to us today and you want to hear more, then please subscribe on whatever podcast app that you choose to listen to us on. Come join the group, follow us on Instagram.
and tell everybody about us to help us keep going.
Exactly. So thank you so much for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next time
for episode 2. See you soon.
Hooray! I think that's it.